First things first, I'm Sarah Kustak filling in for Jenna Wolfe. That's Chris Broussard. That's Doug Gottlieb filling in for Chris Carter and Nick Wright. I was almost going to poke you, but...
At some point, you'll want to smack me, so that will happen.
She's held off the past.
I was just about to say that may have already happened.
Great discipline.
We need to. Well, we're going to start with a hot topic. To end all debates, I don't know, we had the greatest basketball player of all time chiming in. Some say LeBron, some say Michael Jordan, but one NBA legend threw a wrinkle in the debate none of us were prepared for. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar told the Undefeated the reason there is no such thing as the GOAT is because every player plays under unique circumstances. We played different positions, under different rules, with different teammates, with different coaches. Every player has to adapt to their circumstances and find a way to excel. This isn't Highlander. There can be more than what. Doug, what's your thoughts on Highlander?
That's it. Listen,
we don't have time for that.
No, this is the challenge.
He's
of
got
Kareem.
an opinion on it.
No.
I shouldn't have made the joke.
I played basketball for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was my head coach in the USBL with the Oklahoma Storm. And I know we want to get into it's an interesting discussion, but he's only proving how much smarter than us he is. That he can make a reference like, and some of you are going to have to Google it, like Highlander, I don't get it.
I Googled it this
morning. And then you're like, oh, it totally makes sense. But anyway, that's just Kareem showing how intelligent he is.
Okay, and we'll get back to that. But is Kareem correct in saying that there is no GOAT?
I don't believe so. But again, I'm also somebody that says, hey, if somebody's my best friend, it means they're my best friend. When you have kids, they'll say they're your best. He's my best friend. Well, I thought Jim was your best friend.
Yeah.
No, I thought Dylan was your best friend. No, there's multiple best friends. Greatest of all time is singular, and so I take it to be singular. And by the way, it's a much better way to make an argument. I also think, though, that you got after me with my Larry Bird argument. My argument yesterday, which is fair, but it's also fair to say these things can be fluid if players are still playing, right? I know Nick has his all-time rankings, and that's it. That's the way he views basketball. Look, I can only do based upon what I have seen. I grew up in a basketball household. My dad was a coach. My brother's a coach. I grew up playing this thing. I've coached some. I broadcast 15 years. I played at every level except for the NBA. And by my estimation, the greatest basketball player I've ever seen is Michael Jordan. I watched Kareem Abdul-Jabbar play for the LA Lakers growing up in Southern California, and statistically and in terms of collecting rings and how great he was in college, there's an argument to be made for Kareem being left out of it. But I think that the true... Really what Kareem is saying, and even in a super intelligent way to which it makes you think, and a lot of what he's saying is in fact correct. Everybody plays in different rules, different circumstances, different era. He's kind of doing the Kobe Bryant thing, right? Like, hey, I won 6 titles. I won 6 MVPs. I'm the all-time leading scorer. I was a dominant player in college. I won all these rings in college. And right? Power Memorial, and no one's talking about me. Why am I not being interjected into the conversation? I kind of think he's doing what Kobe did during the finals on Twitter, which is put himself back into a conversation to which we had eliminated him from years ago.
Well, you know what he's doing is he's being logical. I mean, the quote he had, you can't pick it apart. And he's absolutely right. I mean, what if Michael Jordan had gone to a team with Hakeem Olajuwon? Now, he probably would have won more championships, but he probably wouldn't be regarded as the GOAT either. You know, I mean, so they're different circumstances. You know, it's very subjective. The problem with what Kareem said is there's no fun in that. Okay, you know, he's a guy that doesn't have to debate, that doesn't want to talk about these topics for a living. He's just one of the players, one of the subjects that we talk about. So I get where he's coming from. And I was talking to Clyde Drexler a few months ago on my podcast In the Zone, and he was like, look, you know, Magic was phenomenal.
Yes.
But we also were like, Magic, you got Kareem, you got James Worthy, you know, like, there are players that feel like I would have won just as much had I been in his shoes, you know. So I get it from a player's perspective. There is no, if we want to be totally technical about it, there is no purely objective way to figure out who's the GOAT. However, I do think as analysts, and, you know, we can talk about these things, and you can come up with criteria that, you know, we can make an educated argument about who is the greatest of all time. And if the most people side with one guy, then he can be unofficially, I guess, the GOAT. And that's what's happened with Michael Jordan. I mean, I think if you look at individual dominance, obviously Wilt Chamberlain, some people might even argue Oscar Robertson. For his first 5 years, if you put them together cumulatively, he averaged a triple-double for his first 5 years of his career. Okay, 384 games. But they didn't have the winning to go along with the individual statistical dominance. Bill Russell had the winning 11 rings, but he didn't have the individual statistical dominance. He had 18 points a game, 44% shooting for a center.
Right.
Michael Jordan has both. Individually dominant as much as just about anybody we've seen, and the winning. 6 rings, obviously 6 for 6 for the championship. You can go through other things, skills, leading a team to the title rather than being maybe the second best player on the team. You know, change conventional wisdom. You know, Jordan did that. All of these, I think Jordan is the one guy that checks off all the boxes. One more I'll add before you go. Always at your best on the big stage. Yeah. LeBron had the situation with Dallas. Magic Johnson, 1984, struggled in the finals, made some bad mistakes. They were calling him Tragic Johnson. So when you look at all of the boxes, I think Jordan checks them off, and that's why most people regard him as the GOAT.
Well, first thing is we have to rewind back to 6:35:44. You said cumulatively.
Yeah, I was
nailed. No, you stuck the landing.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Chris's plug for In the Zone.
No, and he's nice plug. And he's only had a little. He got the plug in. He got cumulatively, and he only had one sip of coffee. Like that's really remarkable.
Chai tea latte. No phone.
Nice work out of you. Yeah, look, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. I grew up in a household where my dad is a New Yorker, and he thought Wilt was kind of a bum, right? He just did. He was like, man, I watched NBA Finals, and he would always get outplayed. And then when he was in LA, he got pulled out of the game. He got benched late in one NBA Finals. And he did win 2 championships, one in Philadelphia, one in LA. But his personal opinion had always kind of gave me a personal bias against Wilt, even though statistically he's inarguably the most dominant player of his or any era in the NBA. Kareem was one to which it's really hard for those of us who watched him at the end of his career to realize in the meat and the start of his career, he was a freak athlete. He was dominant at both ends of the floor. And because we saw him when he was in his 40s, hitting the skyhook with big goggles on and pointing #1 when they won the championship. But to your point, Magic Johnson never won an NBA championship when Kareem wasn't on his team.
Right.
Okay? So the only thing I can really go by is what I saw when I was old enough to really kind of evaluate and sense. And look, Magic and Bird ran this league. They were incredible, and they had duel after duel in the NBA Finals. They were also going through great players on each side of it. And I do think what you said about Jordan, like the Drexler one is perfect. There was a time in the early 90s, right before the Dream Team, right before they faced off in the finals, where people out west were saying, hey, Clyde Drexler is kind of catching up on Michael Jordan, the best 2-guard in the league. You know what Jordan did? He stomped that narrative. He saw him in the finals, and he hit 6 threes in the first half when Magic was broadcasting the game, and that's where this came from. Like, oh, people said I couldn't shoot. Guess I can shoot. He also destroyed him in Dream Team practices. Talk to those guys in the Dream Team, and they'll tell you, forget about the game that everybody talks to that was never, that when the college kids beat him and it was kind of rigged against him. The true story of that one, of the Dream Team, was that Michael Jordan destroyed Clyde Drexler every day in practice just to make a point, it's still my league, I'm still the best 2-guard, which is kind of what brings me around to some of my logic with LeBron. I think LeBron is incredible, right? There's hundreds of thousands of basketball players, tens of thousands of NBA players all time, and I think he's one of the top 5. He may well be the second best player. I mean, he's done some things. He has caused me to move off of some of the thoughts I've always had about him. But the difference has been, to me, there are times to which he's outshone at his position in the NBA Finals by a Kevin Durant. I think that's inarguable. But he also though he plays a style more like Magic than like Jordan in terms of his willingness and desire to set teammates up. Remember, Magic and Bird, who are both incredible passers. Magic's the best big passer I've ever seen. Magic he still had a little bit more of a killer instinct. Give me the ball. He made the baby sky hook. Yeah. He made the fadeaway bank three in Boston Garden. And he had a little bit, what I would say is more killer, although it feels like LeBron is more comfortable in his skin and more comfortable even no fear of missing, and that even is evolving. But I think it's an interesting discussion, and it shows just how intelligent and the wherewithal of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But as you said, that ain't no fun. Pick a side, pick an argument, and pretend like you know exactly what you're talking about.
The key is this. When you look at all these all-time greats, you nitpick. It's little minor things, right? Because that's all you can do. They're all tremendous, so you do nitpick. And I think Kareem, even though I've got LeBron second, Kareem third, Kareem is probably, like, he checks off a ton of the boxes, too. Individually dominant, won 6 rings, 6 MVPs. However, 2 of his rings came past his prime. He averaged 17 points, 6 rebounds, 14 points, 6 rebounds in his last 2 championships. So he didn't actually lead a team to 6 titles. And then right smack dab in the middle of his prime, 1975, 1976, he missed the playoffs. You can't fathom LeBron James, Michael Jordan, one of those guys missing the playoffs right in the middle of their prime.
Look, the true genius he did the Inception thing. You guys remember the movie Inception?
Yes.
Incredible movie, right? It's the idea of planting an idea.
Was that the one with the dreams?
Yes.
I was lost.
You plant an idea without anybody know you're planting the idea. Here we are all talking about how bright he is and how great he is. We're talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the greatest of all-time conversation, which has never happened in the history of cable television. You may have done it, but Nick and Cris have done it.
That Kareem's not in the combo?
Nobody brings Kareem up.
I feel like
a lot
he
of
is
people bring him
always.
up.
I think basketball.
A lot of old heads have him as the GOAT.
But old heads aren't on TV. People on TV never did. He did the Inception thing. He planted an idea, and here we are discussing
Thomas
it.
has brought him up.
We'll talk about Highlander during the break.
Coming up. Jordan.
Could Baker Mayfield be the Browns' Week 1 starter? That is next on First Things First. Cleveland Browns. They have said Tyrod Taylor is their starter, but might have a quarterback battle on their hands. Reports are that first overall pick Baker Mayfield has the team floored at training camp. Cris, is Baker Mayfield the most NFL-ready rookie quarterback?
Well, let me give a little context to this. All right, first of all, the word floored was not uttered by a Browns player, a Browns executive, or a coach. It was uttered by a TV and radio personality. Okay, so which is fine, but floored makes it like, oh my gosh, like he's just wowing us.
Quarterback Jesus.
Yeah,
yes.
he's wowing a radio guy, not necessarily the Browns. Secondly, Hugh Jackson, the head coach, is known to gush over players. All right, last year at this time, roughly, this is what he said about Deshaun Kaiser, who is nowhere to be found nowadays. This young man gives us hope. He keeps passing every test. Nothing in my mind that says he's not going to do well. Okay, so just a little context, and more so, a month or 2 ago, we were reading reports about Baker Mayfield struggling mightily in OTAs.
Correct.
Okay, so I do not think he is the most NFL ready of all the guys. Number one, he didn't take snaps under center for the most part at Oklahoma. Yeah. Okay, he's got to get used to obviously doing that, but then the 3-step, the 5-step, the 7-step drops, the depth in the pocket, all of that, that's not necessarily an easy thing to learn right off the bat. So I don't think he's the most NFL ready. A big part of his game, look, he's very accurate in college, no doubt. Big part of his game, though, was with his legs, making things happen outside the pocket, but he runs a 4.8. He's not going to be able to make things happen like that in the NFL like he did in college. So I'm not as high on Baker Mayfield. I didn't think he was the best quarterback in this draft. I liked Sam Darnold. Sure. I would have taken him number 1. I think Josh Rosen is more NFL ready than Mayfield and probably Darnold just because he didn't play as much in college. But that's how I'd go.
Well, look, there's several different kind of arguments in one. You're right. Josh Rosen, if you watched, for example, USC versus UCLA at the Coliseum, you're like, wait, which one is the NFL-ready quarterback? That's Josh Rosen, right? He has a lot of those attributes, but he's been hurt all 3 years that he was at UCLA. He got hurt, as opposed to Baker, who, 33-6 as a starting quarterback, starting 7 games, even at Texas Tech, sat out a year. So he should be the most NFL ready or the most capable of leading a team. He has an off-the-charts football IQ. You talk to people in NFL front offices who interviewed all the quarterbacks, and they're like, Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen were heads and tails above everybody else in terms of their readiness to understand the intricacies of an NFL offense. That said, I do think there's limitations. People want to find the next Russell Wilson, only they aren't willing to wait to the third round to find it. And that's, well, he's kind of Russell Wilson. You know, it's much like Trae Young. People want to find the next Steph Curry before they can. But this is the, and I hate to use the word, but almost toxicity of a number 1 overall pick. Because he's the number 1 overall pick, you have to play him. Tyrod Taylor led the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs. They tried to pull him one half in L.A. against the Chargers, and Nathan Peterman threw 5 picks in the first half. Like, if we would have played defense, we would have gotten an interception that game. And even in spite of that, the Bills still found a way to make the playoffs. Like, Tyrod Taylor is a capable NFL quarterback who is almost the same size, maybe a slight tinge smaller than Baker Mayfield, has as good an arm, maybe not as accurate, but a stronger arm, and better feet, and better feel, and has more experience in the NFL. But he's going to get benched at some point this season because Baker Mayfield's the number 1 overall pick. You draft a guy number 1,
so
you got to play him.
So if they're 4-4, around, what would that, I don't know what that'd be, Thanksgiving, whatever. If they're 4-4 and, you know, obviously would be in the playoff hunt, you're benching Taylor?
That's the problem. Remember, you have a head coach who's a quarterback guru who I'm sure wants to keep his job, who has won 1 game in the last 2 years, but he wasn't hired by John Dorsey. And I do think that John Dorsey, who's the general manager of the Browns, I'm sure he's sitting there going, I came from Kansas City. We handled it perfectly last year. Yeah. We had Pat Mahomes. He lit up the preseason. We didn't play him in the regular season until week 17. Now Pat Mahomes is the guy. I'm sure in his mind, that's the plan. Everybody has a plan. What was that Mike Tyson said? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Yeah.
But he's the number 1 pick. It's different.
Still, what if he's not ready?
This is the
Why do you have to play him?
You were in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
Remember when Anthony Bennett flamed out? And he didn't flame out because he was awful and because he was out of shape coming off of. That was part of it. It was because he was the number 1 overall pick. If you look back at that draft, Victor Oladipo is the one guy in the top of that draft that was better than anyone could have thought. But there's a lot of guys that aren't in the NBA anymore from that very same draft. Yeah. The difference is the number 1 overall pick. It's judged differently. There's more pressure to play him right away.
It's judged differently, but I don't know that you have to play him right away.
What are realistic expectations for the Browns? What do they need to accomplish? That
look, I think they will be in the playoff hunt. I think they'll miss it. I think 8-8 is a. I think they could be right around 8-8.
From 1 win in the last 2 years to 8-8.
Yep.
I mean, remember, they're in a division in which the Ravens kicked away, should have been in the playoffs last year. Cincinnati, everything went wrong. And I know everybody's down on Marvin, who came back for another year. But look, I think if you win 5 or 6 games, you feel really, really good about yourself. They don't know how to win. There's not a winning culture. They don't have Josh Gordon right now. So it sounds great.
8-8 is a ceiling. But I think I would not be shocked if they go 8-8. But I think 5 or 6 wins, you feel good about it.
And you think that Tyrod Taylor could take them to 4-4?
Oh, yeah, they could start that way. You know, I think Taylor has a good chance to be the quarterback throughout the whole season. And I just think if Mayfield's not ready, you don't have to play him.
But if he's not ready, having been in college for 5 years, he ain't ever going to be ready, right? Like these other guys, Sam Darnold started for a year and a half. Josh Rosen, who looks refined, but he's only played 3 years in college. This dude is a quarterback. He's been a quarterback since birth. He went in, and he was a walk-on at Tech, but he started as a freshman, redshirted, started 3 years, didn't lose a road game at Oklahoma, as a starting quarterback. I'm sitting there thinking, if he's not ready now, then they got a bust in their hands. If he's not, I like Tyrod Taylor better. I'm not, but he's the number 1 overall pick. He's going to play. That's the way it works.
Coming up, is LeBron having second thoughts about picking the Lakers? Hear it from him next on First Things First. Time for us to go viral. Gordon Hayward has been working out, trying to rehab for next season, but he's also getting buckets in Fortnite. Take a look.
Hopefully no one shoots us. Kobe.
I got 75.
Ooh!
1 for 1, 1 for 1. I see you.
Yeah, take that, ball god.
Oh, man. Josh Hart Fortnite addict, always tweeting about it. Man, the Fortnite thing is
Do you guys
crazy.
do either of you play?
No.
Are you familiar?
I haven't played a video game in decades.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I play
haven't
video
played
games with my
since-
kid all the
I
time.
haven't since Super Mario
But
Bros.
my son is
Nintendo, Sonic,
He's
Sega
a-
Genesis.
I'm back in the Miss Pac-Man era.
Oh, dude, it's awesome. Once you have a son, my son's 9, we play against each other all the time. He always wants to play on his team because I beat him all the time in Madden or in NBA 2K. But he's an anti-Fortnite kid because they become zombies. That's all they play. You know, they made $1.8 billion on that game in the first year. 1.8 billion, billion with a B. It is a problem. Kids cannot stop playing it, and now Gordon Hayward can't stop getting buckets in it.
Unbelievable. Time for some stories to start your morning, brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. According to reports, Tristan Thompson and Draymond Green were involved in an altercation following a LeBron James SB after party. Durant and LeBron reportedly broke up to fight. Chris, what do you make of this?
Well, you know, Draymond said, "What? We're not cut the same." They didn't shake hands after the finals or something like that. He said, "We're not cut the same, bro." And Tristan, I guess, sucker punched him. That's what the reports say. I'd love to see these two in a cage match. I would love to see that. That'd be a great fight.
Look, Charles Barkley said somebody needs to go up and punch Draymond Green, and I guess Tristan Thompson volunteered, like, I'll be the guy, but not when we're all dressed up nice and clean,
Right.
you know, after the ESPYs. So it was weird, but in many ways, Draymond had it coming. You talk enough trash about a guy, and eventually, what's he going to do?
To the NFL, Lamar Jackson will make his preseason debut on Thursday against the Bears. Jackson said he's eager to show he's a quarterback. Chris, what do you expect to see from Jackson?
I'm eager to see it. I mean, obviously we've heard a ton about this kid, you know, from the Ravens and how dynamic he's looked. I want to see how they use him. You know, I definitely want to see him under center and what he does as the QB. I think he's a project. I don't think he's ready or will be ready anytime soon, but it'll be fun to watch in the preseason.
He's an incredible athlete. He does have that kind of Mike Vick quick snap release, if you will. There's a lot of Vick to him, even though he's right-handed as opposed to left-handed. I'm fascinated. He's so caught up in being a quarterback. It really is interesting. Even if you listen to the Ravens when he's on the field with Joe Flacco, like, oh, so he's playing wide receiver? No. We have two quarterbacks at once. Like, yeah, but Joe Flacco's taking the snap from center. Yes, we have two
Yes.
Quarterback is a trigger word for him. If you say he's not a quarterback, he loses his mind.
To the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott is looking for a huge year after missing 6 games last season. The Cowboys running back coach says he sees a completely different Zeke this year. Doug, how much better can Zeke actually get?
Oh, I think leaps and bounds better. First, even if you look at last year, remember Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith was injured part of last year.
Yeah.
Most people consider him far and away the best left tackle in the game. Look, I think you have the wherewithal of being in the NFL now for 3 seasons. I think he's changed and adjusted his body. I think they know they're going to use him in more creative ways. I do think that Des Bryant calling out the creativity or lack thereof of the Dallas Cowboys was in fact accurate, and Jason Garrett knows he has to find different ways to get him the football. But look, I think that Zeke Elliott was just cracking the surface of how good he can be. He's that type of breakthrough back that in all 3 phases, running it, catching it, and pass protection, he can be an elite running back. He should be the best in the sport.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I'll add this: motivation. I mean, you missed 6 games.
Yep.
You're essentially the reason. I know they didn't start that hot with him, but you may be the reason they missed the playoffs. So you want to come out there and show that you are the best running back in the league. So I expect a huge season from Zeke.
Finally, Johnny Manziel will make his CFL debut on Friday. He'll make his first start in over 2 years for the Montreal Alouettes. Chris, do you think we'll ever see Johnny Manziel in the NFL again?
Wow. I'm going to say yes, with some hesitation. I think, look, it may take him a while to adjust to the CFL. It typically does with NFL quarterbacks. But I think the things he's going to be asked to do up there are more similar to what he did in college than what the Browns asked him to do. And the field's wider. You know, there are things that could benefit his game in the CFL. And I think if he goes up there and plays well, you know, it looks like he's been rehabilitated as a person, you know. So I think somebody will give him a shot if he shows something in the CFL, and I think he will.
Well, there's 2 parts there, and the one point you made, which is great, which is it is a wider field. There are 12 guys on the field. It does give him a chance to run around. I mean, we saw Doug Flutie reinvigorate his career by going up and winning Grey Cups. So if he's going to succeed in professional football, this is a great chance for him to succeed. I don't know if it makes him any more NFL worthy, right? And then the other part to the Johnny Manziel thing is, well, there's a couple other parts. One is, remember, he's still going to be small. There's still questions about his arm strength. Forget about the off-the-field stuff. On the field, there's a lot of questions about Johnny Manziel. And then in terms of the off the field, as he has rehabilitated himself, has he lost that edge? You know, you can't be a 6-foot quarterback running around, staring down a blitz and being willing to, deliver the football and take a big hit unless you're just a little bit crazy, right? You got to have this. You got to have something missing upstairs to have that edge. And does the change in Johnny Manziel as a person, which I hope and pray almost that. I don't sit there and actually pray, but I do. I do hope that he really has changed. He really has evolved as a person. But there is a question of, does that take away his edge? Does that take away of what made Johnny Manziel Johnny Football? You can go back to being John Manziel from Kerrville, Texas, but you take that special something that he had away, and I don't have great expectations that he'll be back in the National Football League, but if it's ever going to work, he's playing for his college coach, Mike Sherman, playing in the type of league that has the rules that allow him to run around and make plays back there. If it's going to work, it's going to be in the CFL more than the NFL.
Yeah, Friday is going to be fun to watch. Good for him. Moving on to LeBron James. About 4 weeks ago, he decided to join the Lakers, but he also reportedly considered teaming up with James Harden and Chris Paul in Houston, or staying in the East with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in Philly. LeBron admitted to Rachel Nichols that going to L.A. wasn't an easy decision.
I definitely thought long and hard about the possibilities of lining up alongside Ben and Embiid, or lining up aside, Harden and Chris. I felt like at this point in my career, the ultimate for me, just like when I went to Miami, everyone kind of looks at me joining a super team. But if people look at, I think Miami was 35 and 47, the year before I joined that team. And you can look at the Lakers, record from. So I like the challenge. I like the challenge of being able to, help a team get to some places that they haven't been in quite a while.
Cris, was choosing the Lakers over Houston or over Philadelphia the best decision for LeBron's legacy?
Well, LeBron left out in that clip that he went to Miami with Chris Bosh. So
and that Dwayne Wade was hurt the year before. And eventually they added Ray Allen, which is in fact a super team. And when he went to Cleveland, everybody forgets they added Kevin Love. And oh yeah, by the way, Cleveland was tanking. They were trying to lose games. David Griffin came on my radio show and said, listen, I know everybody's killing Kyrie, but he was hurt his first couple years, and we were trying to lose games to put ourselves in position to get the #1 overall pick, which we achieved, and we just so happened to back into LeBron James. So listen, I love he didn't join a super team like Kevin Durant joined a super team, but that's a load of bull.
Well, it wasn't the type of team Durant joined. And I think Cleveland was similar to the Lakers, closer to the Lakers than what Miami was. Miami was a straight-up super team. There's no revisionist history that's going to take that away. But to get to your question, look, I get why he went to the Lakers. As soon as he said in his press conferences during the finals or after the finals, it's going to be my family and it's going to be about having a chance to win, I figured it was the Lakers because that's the best place for his family. They had lived there in the summers. They had roots there. But if we're talking strictly basketball, and what would have been better for his legacy, or let's just call it like it is, his chase of the GOAT, Michael Jordan, I think Philadelphia, without question, was the best place to go. Number one, you're joining the team that he goes to Philadelphia this year. They're the favorites to win the East. With all due respect to the Celtics, I think Philadelphia is the favorite to win it in the East. And then, look, I wouldn't have picked them necessarily over Golden State, but I do think you would have had pieces that, if not this year, maybe the following season, could have beaten Golden State. How would they have dealt with Embiid? Okay, now you got Cousins, but, whatever. But how would you have dealt with Joel Embiid playing small ball? You got Embiid, LeBron, Simmons, Dario Saric, Robert Covington. That's 6'8" and above, or 6'9" and above everywhere. You can switch a lot of that.
Yes.
You have some shooters.
Yes.
And even, I think LeBron could have led Embiid and Simmons to a title while he's still the best player. And then as he ages and those two reach their primes, they could have, like we talked about Kareem and Magic earlier, it could have been that type of situation where LeBron could have won maybe a title or two, and he's not the best player on his team. So you get to 4 or 5 or, maybe more championships. That would have been better for his legacy.
Okay, so here's the question, though, and I think Sarah was getting to this, is do you think that he legitimately considered the Sixers and the Rockets?
I think he looked at them briefly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Briefly. But I think he knew he wanted to go to L.A.
Did they get a meeting?
Well, Philly got a meeting.
No, they
I
didn't get a
thought
meeting
Philly
with
got a
him.
call
They got a meeting with his guys.
Yeah,
You didn't get a face-to-face?
Yeah.
You didn't consider it. That's like saying, well, I almost went there in college. Did you visit? No. Did you do a home visit? Did coaches come to your home? It's like, no, but I thought about it. Like, yeah, you thought about it. Thinking about it and legitimately considering it, two different things. I agree with you on Philadelphia. I agree with you on the Rockets, right? The Rockets were this close. You had LeBron James, right? It doesn't have, it wouldn't have had
lost a lot.
It wouldn't have had the staying power
everybody
of the
else.
76ers. But you line up James Harden, Chris Paul, and LeBron James. That's a pretty good three. Figure out the rest, right? And I think you're in pretty good shape. So I don't believe that he legitimately considered it. I think he wanted to go to the Lakers. I think that Cleveland was a possible fallback. Maybe I'll do this 1 year round. I think the reason, honestly, that you heard the possibility of San Antonio or Golden State or Boston was because they knew there weren't great options. Look, Philadelphia lost out the same reason people lose out in real estate. Location, location, location. If they were in New York, he'd be a Knick right now. But they're not. They're the Sixers. There's nothing wrong with Philadelphia, but it's not the Knicks. Yep. It's not the Lakers. He wanted to be a Laker. He may say, I enjoy the challenge. Okay, let's see what happens if one of these young guys gets hurt. Let's see what happens if it gets really ugly and you don't make the playoffs. You're struggling. Do you really? Everyone says, man, I love the challenge. Yeah. I love it. Okay, well, that's like saying, man, I love that when I grew up, we didn't have air conditioning. Walk outside on a humid day without air conditioning. You love that? No, I actually really like air conditioning. I really like playing with guys that make shots, that guys that have been there before. I'm not calling him a phony or a fake in any way, but I do think that he's painting it. He's trying to change the narrative into, I built this in Miami and we won. I built it in Cleveland and we won. I built it in LA and we're going to win because I'm Bob the Builder. Can we fix it? Yes, we can.
Do you think, you point to the Cleveland championship, and some may say that has more significance because it was the first championship, because they beat the team that they did in the Golden State Warriors, the way they came back from a 3-1 deficit. Do you think that if he were to win a championship with the Lakers, for him, it would mean more if he would have went to Houston and done it, or if he would have went to Philadelphia?
I think to all of us and most basketball
he's never going to be
people,
6 for 6 like MJ. If he's chasing the GOAT, he's never going to be 6 for 6. But
if he leads the Lakers to a championship, it is wildly significant.
Yes.
And I would say the Cleveland title is his crowning glory.
Yes.
Okay. Lakers would be second. It would be better than the 2 in Miami. Because like we said, the team was so stacked. And the Lakers, it would be the first person to lead 3 teams to a championship. So and you are building. He is building a team. And let's see if he gets, even if he gets a Kawhi Leonard or somebody like that. Now, if Kevin Durant goes there, that's a different story, because if Kevin Durant goes to the Lakers next summer, they're the favorites, or they're right up there with Golden State. I think most people will put them right there, even par with the Warriors, if Kevin Durant goes there.
But you still don't think that adds to his legacy?
No, it adds. I mean, any title he's going to win is going to add. It wouldn't have the same
significance. Same significance. I would tend to agree. Look, 3-1 down to the Golden State Warriors. And
73 wins.
73 wins. And I know Draymond got suspended and Bogut got hurt. That's all part of kind of what actually happened in the context of it. But 3-1 down, and for the city of Cleveland to say, I'm going to come back and win, and to go and do it for your home area, look, opening a school, number one. In terms of sports, that's your number one. And then I think the Lakers, it would be significant if you take an organization that for 5 years has been kind of a joke. They've been wandering around in the desert, and he says, follow me to the promised land, and 2 or 3 years in, they win a title. I do think that would be incredibly significant, and it would be more significant, I think, to us in the media. But in his heart of hearts, or maybe in his subconscious, if you cut him open and said, what's the most significant? I don't think you're going to top what happened in Cleveland against the Golden State
I
Warriors.
also think he got tired of losing finals. I don't know if he ever would admit it, but I don't think he wanted to make it 3-7. Maybe 3-8 or whatever. Now, if he went to Philadelphia, it could have become 3-7, but it also could have become 4-7.
Wait, he got tired of
4-8.
losing in the finals, so he wants to go and lose in the second round, or that doesn't make.
Look, historically, when we look back, we're not going to look back. We don't look back at when Michael Jordan lost in the first round, the second round. We look at the finals record. And I think legacy-wise, people are going to look.
Jerry
West
is 1-8 in the NBA.
Jerry West isn't in the GOAT conversation.
Okay, but he's never going to. It's never. The idea that he's tired of losing in the. I think guys that like to win, and they hate.
They
losing.
weren't winning.
But they hate losing, right? They hate losing even more than they like winning. He ain't gonna like losing in the second round.
No, he won't. But it won't add to that.
Like, wow, I'm so happy I lost now because I was.
He gets
so much
dogged about his finals record.
By who? By people on TV. But the reality of it is, he was
Fans
the
who
underdog.
are influenced by people on TV dog him about that.
The first finals in, look, if you want to get down to it, the last one in San Antonio, I think he doesn't get. Remember, he cramped up. He was playing incredibly well, but he didn't have a great series the rest of the way.
Well, his numbers were.
The Dallas one is the one people ride him on. The first Golden State, he didn't have Kevin Love and he lost Kyrie Irving.
I get all the context, but people 10 years from now, a lot of people won't look at all of that context. You brought up Draymond and Andrew Bogut being hurt when he beat Golden State. We don't bring up that Magic was hurt in Michael's first championship, or that in Magic's last championship, Isaiah Thomas is banged up with the bad ankle, or Detroit probably wins that, or Kareem gets the phantom foul call and gets the free throws and they win that championship. Like, most people don't think of those things.
I do think
so we won't
we
think
revel
of
in the fact that he's been to 8 straight finals, though. That's an accomplishment.
But people also hold it against him that he's lost 6.
Coming up, we're switching to the NFL, and which rookie is getting way too much hype? Bart Scott joins us with the answer. That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Former Pro Bowl linebacker Bart Scott joins us. Bart, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a long time since I see these two guys. Absolutely. How's
Is that
the
a
West
good
Coast?
thing or a bad thing?
I like it.
It's a great thing. Last time I saw him, he was getting undercut at his charity event.
Oh, no.
He walked it off,
nice
though.
game, though.
He walked it off, man.
Yeah. I was MVP of my own charity event.
I haven't seen either of these guys play, and they talk a big game.
He took enough shots. Now, I slept on him. You know what I mean? He came out.
He was the enforcer.
Yeah.
I think you would have won the undercut me, maybe.
Sweep the leg. No, I was on your team.
You sent somebody after.
No, I was on my team. Sweep the leg.
I was telling him, set this pick. He wanted the ball now.
I didn't want to embarrass myself. Oh, good to see you.
We're going to speak about overhyped things. And let's talk about Saquon Barkley. The former Penn State running back has high expectations this season after being selected 2nd overall by the Giants. Also, apparently, NBC expects him to light up the big stage as he is the only rookie featured in the famous Sunday Night Football intro. Bart, is Saquon Barkley being overhyped heading into his rookie season?
I just don't see how he can live up to the expectations. I see a talented, very polished young man, but when I look at him, I see Reggie Bush. And when I say that, I see a guy that his entire college career, he was able to circle the defense. He was a cutback runner. He doesn't, and yesterday I was listening to him a couple days ago talk to Sean O'Hara and LT, and what I wanted to hear, they asked him about, what does he like to do? What's his preference? Does he like to run over a defender, or would he prefer to juke him? And he said, I have no preference. And to me, if you ask that question to Leonard Fournette, if you ask that to Ezekiel Elliott, they're going to step on somebody's chest. He's a big man that has a small man's game. I know we make a lot about his legs. And when I look at a lot of his highlights, I see a guy that when somebody's on the track, he jumps over them. And that's something that, he's going to have to be careful of, because I played with Todd Heap, and I don't know how many times I can count that he landed on his head, Don Beebe style. So he's going to come out like that. If somebody's going to take his legs out, he's going to learn that lesson. But LT tried to protect him, and he said, it becomes a time in short yardage where straight ahead, no fair dodging, where you got to put your foot in the ground. You got to get that yard. And I just don't know how he's going to understand. He's going to get tested early. He's going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's going to be used to being able to circle the defense. And Calais Campbell was like, come on out here, little fella. And I love Telvin Smith. He's a guy that has that hit stick. He's a guy that plays with a motor. That defense has an attitude. And I don't know if he can be an every down back straight up, because that's a skill that you have to learn. You have to learn how, if you're not a physical running back, how to try and get defenders leaning, how to juke them, but then put your foot in the ground and get them off balance. And I don't know if he's developed that skill in college because he was able to just outrun everybody.
Well, I agree with you, Bart. I definitely think he's overhyped. Well, number one, because I think the Giants taking him number 2 when your starting quarterback's 37 years old, coming off a horrible season. And it
was everybody else's fault.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You got this draft where you could draft a franchise quarterback. We think. I thought that was overhyped, number one. Number two, I'm with you on the college game, and I know they stacked the box against him at Penn State. But some of his games against Rutgers, 14 carries, 35 yards. Rutgers gave up 182 yards a game on the ground. I don't care if they're stacking the box. They're Rutgers, and you should run over. Indiana, 20 carries, 56 yards. He only had 5 100-yard games his last year there. You look at Ezekiel Elliott, he had 1,200-yard games in 13 games. Fournette had 400-yard games in 7 games. I just looked at that, and I was baffled that so many football guys who obviously know the game were just going gaga over his combine performance. I'm like, that's nice, but that's not football.
Right.
You know? And so I do think he's overhyped.
But Bart, do you think it was because of how he was coached? Do you think it's because of our... I do think you look at his legs, like, damn, that guy, he's got to just run dudes over.
They need to stop that, by the way.
No, I understand. It's bodied like Tarzan, but you're going to play like Jane, right? Like, you're going to run dudes over or
it's a mentality. And his mentality is to try and run around you instead of run through you. When you look at that Leonard Fournette tape, you look at that Ezekiel Elliott tape, you saw a grown man doing physical things. And now he's going to have to adjust because he's not going to be able to outrun everybody.
Yes.
The edge is going to be set.
You don't get faster in the NFL. Everybody else does, right? That's the same.
How much does it help that the Giants have other weapons, though, offensively? Will that aid in his learning curve?
I think that gives him a light box because Odell Beckham, you're going to have to, be able to keep somebody over the top to protect for Odell. But they're going to put him in a phone booth and they're going to dare him to beat him. And he's going to say, okay, come in between these tackles and meet me there. And he's going to have to change that narrative because when I see that, and I know every other defensive player is watching, they're licking their chops because now he's hyped. He's the number 2 overall pick. And we can't compare him to the other. For me, Sony Michel was the best, running back that came out because I felt like he was full. You saw what he did in some of those, championship games, averaging almost 7 yards a carry against Alabama, which is pretty much a pro team in itself. But he's going to be forced to try and do some things early on, and he's going to have to make sure that he stays within himself. And I don't know if they don't have a great backup either. I mean, how old is Jonathan Stewart? Like 75 years old? I don't know how old this guy is. His ankles won't hold up last preseason. They're already giving him days off.
You had a little smile when Eli's name was mentioned. Do you think the Giants made a mistake taking a running back with that second pick?
I think if they don't win a championship, not playoffs, if they don't win a championship, then you got to consider that they had an opportunity to have a smooth transition from one Hall of Fame quarterback until another quarterback. And that's why I say Saquon's going to be measured against what Sam Darnold does. If Sam Darnold becomes a star, you have had an opportunity to get your franchise quarterback, and you passed on him because you believe that Eli had 1 or 2 years left. Are we believing that Davis Webb, you talk about being in quarterback hell, being stuck in the middle? I've been there. I've been there. I don't want to go down the list because I don't want to hurt any of my former teammates. But it was tough sledding to try and win a championship without a great quarterback. And I think if you ask anybody in the league or you poll some of the players, if you ask them where's Eli in his career, Eli's maybe top 15, maybe 15 best quarterback in the league right now, and I'm trying to be kind.
Best.
And we've been making a lot of excuses about for Eli for the last couple of years. Oh, it's his offensive line. He doesn't have receivers. Even when they win 11-5, they only put up 20 points like once that year. And you can see that McAdoo was trying to get a mobile quarterback in there because he didn't fit his system, and McAdoo didn't have versatility to be able to change his offense to his personnel, and Eli survived.
Yeah, it does feel like a lot of this is on Gettleman, right? You hire Dave Gettleman. He comes from Carolina. That's why Jonathan Stewart comes over, right? And Dave Gettleman's like, look.
He's the CIA in there. He's the one telling, hey, man, they was talking about us.
Right, but you went to a Super Bowl with Cam Newton, who has limitations at quarterback, with a great running game and a defensive line that gets after people. You kind of controlled the game. And then, of course, you have a couple of super talented wide receivers. Kind of felt like that was the game plan. All right, so I guess the question becomes, Is it going to be enough? You said it's kind of Super Bowl or this was a mistake.
Super Bowl this year or next 2 years?
Well, Eli only has 1 or 2 years left. So when that happens, what are you stuck with? So now you're going to be stuck with Davis Webb and
Well,
who?
forget about Super Bowl. They got to make the playoffs.
They probably have to go wild card because you got to think the defending champions are in their division because they didn't have to pay their quarterback. They were able to go out and get hired guns. They were able to go out and get Bennett. They were able to go get Haloti Ngata. So that's the new way of how you win. That's how Seattle won. And then as soon as they paid Russell Wilson, they didn't have enough money to go out and get a complete team. And Eli's taking a lot of the pie right now. Eli didn't give money back. If they believed in Eli and thought that they were going to have a longer window, they should have gave Eli an extension so that they can take some of that salary cap. They only have like a $900,000 left in their salary cap, and they're trying to get an extension for Odell Beckham. They're incomplete.
Stick around, Bart. We're going to talk about another quarterback in the league coming up. Could Tom Brady pull off another MVP in year 19? That is next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with Bart Scott. Tom Brady turns 41 on Friday, but he is still expected to light up the league. According to one website, Tom Brady is the favorite to win MVP, with Aaron Rodgers having the second best odds, Carson Wentz having the third. Bart, should Tom Brady be the favorite to win the MVP entering his 19th season?
I think, it's voters fatigue. It's just like LeBron in basketball. You can technically probably say that he's the most valuable player on the team because you look at how deficient they are. A lot of times he makes up for a lot of their deficiencies. They don't have great linemen. They have a crew of running back by committee. He makes seemingly horrible receivers to household names. They go there, have career years. But it's simply because most of the defenders in the NFL are dumb. When I say that, you got to think of, for the translation, from the college game to the pro game. It's a spread game. Linemen don't really know how to fire off the ball. And every year I watch Tom Brady, and I watch him make the guys are still falling for the banana in the tailpipe. I'm watching the Super Bowl against Atlanta, same play that he ran against me in like 2005. Empty backfield, come back. It's checking the box, see if you're a man or not. If you have a light box, you decide to keep the safety out there, then it's a run. And then if you don't have the safety there, then it's a pass because it's one-on-one coverage. And they continue to fall for it because it's this old trick, but it's a new crop of talent. So they're coming in, and it's that fear factor. And a lot of times when teams play them, they don't realize that they can beat them, or it's so much anxiety, puts so much mental stress on you because he does all the little things. When you're playing against Tom Brady, you got to get up and run off the field if you're changing personnel because they'll catch you with 12, get a free play. It's all the little things, and that's what the great quarterbacks do. That's why we see a lot of these older quarterbacks still being able to compete because they're competing from the shoulders up, and a lot of these guys just don't have the football acumen to compete. They're falling for the banana tailpipe, cut split by a receiver, offset back. It's a legal pick play. They're not going to call it.
Right.
Fall for it every time.
By the way, Banana in the Tailpipe, that's one of the great movies of all time, Beverly Hills Cop. But unfortunately, I think that reference...
We haven't made it through a block without a movie reference.
That reference is lost on a lot of people.
Put over a lot of the millennials' heads.
Yeah, it is. They're like, what is Beverly Hills
Banana?
Cop?
Is it a banana?
Wait, Daddy. I remember Eddie Murphy and Daddy Daycare, right? He was the voice of Donkey in Shrek. Anyway, okay, so do you watch football differently in a higher level than the rest of us civilians? Do you see any drop-off? I mean, like, look, the
arm strength isn't there.
Yeah.
But,
can you expose that, though?
You can if you have lockdown corners and you have a quarterback on the opposite side of the field that can keep you in the game. You saw last year, Nick Foles matched him, and people were like, oh, it was a great Super Bowl. Like, Nick Foles performed. That defense is awesome. They gave up 500 yards to Tom Brady. And what happens is that he just didn't make the big plays all the time. He got 3 instead of getting 7.
Well, he tried on the last play when he fumbled. He tried to force it to Gronk when he had James White in the flat. I mean, he never gets any criticism. But football guys,
it's hard to criticize him. I mean,
it is, but that was
his hands are bad.
That was holding on to the football.
Right.
The ball falling out of his hands. That ended up costing him the Super Bowl.
I'm interested to see how the Patriots are going to be as an organization. There's a lot of infighting going on there, and they can say whatever they want. But you see Tom Brady, how sensitive he was. We always used to say have skin like an armadillo, being able to take some bumps and bruises, being able to understand it's a tough business. I mean, I feel like the Boston reporter asked him a legitimate question.
Yes.
Guerrero working out with Edelman, he gets popped. Are you any concern? And he was like, I'm out. He's like the get off my lawn guy right now, and I feel like they're arguing over who gets the credit for the dynasty. Is it Bill Belichick or is it Tom Brady? And they're trying to figure it out. And you see Tom kind of getting sensitive, and he's starting to hear the noise. We're seeing Tom do things that he's never done before. The TB12 thing was kind of weird. I don't know if you eat potatoes and trying to get that pliability or plausibility, whatever you're talking about. But he got little kid muscles, man. My son got bigger guns than Tom Brady right now.
That made me feel good when I saw that picture of him. Like, oh, yeah, I ain't that bad.
If I woke up at a body like Tom, I'll jump off the roof.
Other than arm strength, though, how many more years do you see Brady playing at the level we're watching him play at?
Quarterbacks are so protected now. And like I said before, it's not about, playing it physically. He's playing the game mentally. And until somebody, either you retire or this game will retire you. Somebody's going to give him one of those hits, and he's not going to be able to recover for it, and he's going to have to make the decision. Is it worth paying the price? He's got all the money that he wants. He's going to go in as maybe number one or number two best quarterback at all times. He's going to have to make that decision, but I think we're starting to come to the end. I can't see Bill. Bill said he's going to open his world to I forget the coordinator name. He's going to open his world to you. Like, what the hell you been doing all this time? Yeah. Like, now you're going to open your world to me?
Now I wish.
Like, now you're going to give me all the.
Maybe it's the Spygate tapes. Maybe it's the Spygate tapes. You're like, oh, that's what happened to the Spygate tapes.
Well, what about the two other guys mentioned with this, Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz? What's your expectations?
Aaron Rodgers, I think they're going to win that division, and now you've given him a defense on the opposite side. And what I love what they've done, they went out and they addressed that side of the ball, and he's always had to carry the team on both sides. He was their best offensive player and best defensive player because he was putting up points. Now you give him Muhammad Wilkerson, who has something to prove. You give him his former defensive coordinator. But what I love about it is now you're going to put him, Muhammad Wilkerson, in that 5 technique, meaning that he's outside the guard, so the guard has to take him. And then now you're going to pair him with Clay Matthews, who's been all over the place in Don Capers' old system. Now you can't double. So now he's going to be able to rush and get one-on-ones, and he's going to win those matchups because you have Clinton Dix, who's going to be, a weapon that Pettine's going to use. And I think they're going to have balance on both sides of the ball. And now with Jimmy Graham, you give the best quarterback in buying time. You give him a target where he's going to have to take – safeties are going to have to double him, so it's going to be a light box. And with Montgomery back there being a running back, but remember, he's a former receiver.
Yep.
So now when you put him in there, he goes to empty. Now you're taking your linebacker, you're basically putting him against a receiver. So you have mismatches all over the field. Aaron Rodgers is going to light it up.
Why'd they get rid of Jordy? I mean, I understand.
He was slowing down.
He was slowing down, but he was the type of guy you could see evolving into a third wide receiver.
Yeah, like a Ricky Prohl, like a possession receiver. He was slowing down. The knee was.
He's not the same since the knee.
And they got out early. You got to give Devontae Adams an opportunity because he's the new young cat, and you love Cobb as kind of a guy that can go in the slot and be a multi-dimensional type of receiver.
And I almost feel like part of it is they like that it tweaked Aaron, right? Like if you know Aaron operates not with a chip on his shoulder, a bag of chips on his shoulder.
He's still mad.
And he's still mad they cut Jordy Nelson, right? He's mad. And now he's like, why did we cut Jordy Nelson? You didn't even offer him less money.
But here's Jimmy Graham. Okay,
right.
Well, never mind.
All right,
and last time he injured his collarbone, he came back and won MVP. He's always been at his best when they got a pass-catching tight end. So I actually think he's going to be the MVP, Aaron Rodgers.
Well, he's the best quarterback. That's the thing. Tom Brady's the most decorated, and Tom Brady, the football acumen, but Aaron Rodgers checks every box, doesn't he?
He's amazing. He can make every throw. He can throw. He's just as accurate. When you want to say what's the difference between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, of course, the mobility, but he's more accurate. Tom Brady loses tremendous accuracy when he's on the run. He's not a guy that can really throw the ball on the run. He's a guy that has to be planted and have all his mechanics together. Aaron Rodgers can make every throw over the top, underneath, around you. You think about, some of his Hail Marys.
The cowboy throw, moving to his left in the playoffs a couple years ago.
Not too many guys can make that throw, but, he's a weapon, and he gets more yards out of the box, buying time. Tom Brady, sometimes you leave the edges exposed because he's not going to run. He runs like once or twice a year, I think, is in his contract.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.